the reason why I recommend your book, there's only 2 books that I mentioned. It's Gödel Escherbach and Master and His Emissary, is because, well, I will tread on this delicately. Let me think about how to say this. I've had many excursions with elixirs. Let's say it like that.
It's okay.
And pharmacological peregrinations. Let's say that. Okay.
Okay, I love it.
And many are absolutely pleasant, more than that, and many have experiences of the right brain sort that you mentioned before in the positive sense, imbuing the world with meaning and so on. And I'm not just speaking about pharmacological interventions. I'm also just saying meditative practices and so on. But there were a couple times where I've had terrible experiences, and I won't speak about them in detail. I can talk to you about them off air, but it's beside the point. I had something that was akin to a psychotic break, and I had to go to the hospital. I called myself into the hospital just because I was worried. What may I do?
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't feel like I was in control.
Yes.
And that shocked me. I couldn't actually, I couldn't, it was so terrifying. I stopped even pursuing consciousness on this channel for almost a year. And that was in part the advice of the therapist that I was seeing, because afterward I told my family doctor. The family doctor said, see a psychiatrist and see a therapist. So I saw a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist was not concerned because this was a one-off event. And that made me so relieved, because I thought I was confessing something that was extremely terrifying and that would lock me up. And then they're like, oh no, so, and what are your thought patterns like now? And they just took notes. They're like, yeah, no, you're fine. Just continue to speak to a therapist about this. Just work through it. There's nothing you need. That's a pill. You're fine. Okay, great, cool. The therapist said what was occurring with me, at least this is one of her viewpoints, was that what I'm doing here with this channel, it's called Theories of Everything. And every week, sometimes bi-weekly, twice a week, I interview someone on, oh, here's how reality works. And it's completely different than the last person. And I am right-brained in the sense that I'm extremely open, almost too open. And I used to repudiate people who would say, you shouldn't keep your brain so open that your head falls out or your brain falls out. I would say, yeah, you're just trying to justify your own closed-mindedness. I'm going to be open-minded. And I can't, there's something in me that can't, it's difficult for me when someone is telling me their theory for me to think they're a fool. It's extremely difficult for me to think that. I think, okay, maybe you're onto something. I'm going to treat it like you're being honest, and I'm going to see where this leads me. And so what that was doing was, it was as if every week, what ordinarily takes someone a lifetime to get from point A to B, I was traveling the world every week and just shaking up my head. Not even the world, traveling to the moon, traveling the galaxies. And I needed to start to say, okay, what these people are saying are just their points of view. You don't have to buy them wholesale. Even though I felt like that's my job, I still feel like that's my job. Like, I can't dismiss people.
No.
I have to, one, be able to emulate them in my head in order to know that I've done enough preparation, and 2, be able to see the world from their point of view. But anyhow, getting back to Master and His Emissary, it was approximately at that time, either just before or just after, that I started to read, what I've been doing was firstly narrowingly focus. All I was doing was thinking. I need to be in this world more, and that there's a co-creative aspect to even perceiving. And that's in part what you mentioned by attention is a moral act.
Yeah.
So when I'm with my wife, those are my days where I'm just in the being mode, where there's no goals. And your book, it may have helped save my life. I mean that. So, well, that's, someone can transcribe all of that and put that as a Google review for your book.
Well,
I mean it. I mean each word, and thank you.
Well, that's lovely to hear. It means a lot to me. Thank you. You might be interested to know that you're by no means the only person who said that. People have said those very words. You saved my life, or my life has just been different and better since I read your book. And I never thought that I was doing something that would have that kind of impact, but apparently it does. So this is good. And I think it's because people recognize at an intuitive level what I'm saying at a more technical, well, not terribly technical, but at a more scientific and philosophical level. They recognize that it's right. And one of the things people often say is, I kind of knew a lot of this stuff, but I didn't know how to begin to express it or to talk about it. So that wouldn't be you, but I'm glad that it had a good effect in that way. I'm amazed and delighted.
Tell me about an experience of yours that's been between the publication of Master and His Emissary and the writing of The Matter with Things that has shaped your worldview for The Matter with Things.
Gosh. I don't think there was really. I mean, I could say, it was this that happened. I mean, what happened was that I had a contract.
Getting down to brass tacks.
With Penguin Random House to write
yes, sure.
a more potted version of the Martin's Emissary. And I started doing it, and I just didn't find it at all interesting. I mean, I thought, what's in this for me? To say something that I've already expressed at length and subtly, rather too crudely and briefly. And if people are going to read that rather than the Master and His Emissary, I'd rather I didn't do it at all. But in trying to say something about it, I realized I'd only scratched the surface of the philosophical implications of this. I mean, after all, if it is right, and I'm pretty certain that I am right about this, that the two hemispheres, and there's just so much evidence. There's something like 6,000 references in the bibliography of the Matter with Things, because if I'm saying something that's not yet completely mainstream, I have to really say why I'm saying these things. So I really put down the evidence. There just is evidence from so many different strands that the two hemispheres see the world differently. If that is the case, then that has something to say about philosophy and our understanding of everything. In fact, it ramifies into every area of life, which is why people have responded to me from the world of the law, particularly judges and barristers, attorneys, as you would say, from government, from obviously philosophers and psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on, but people from all walks of life. So my correspondents include a lavatory cleaner in Oxford, and he's a rather unusual lavatory cleaner. I think he has a doctorate, but nonetheless, a long-distance lorry driver in Australia. So people write to me from everywhere and from all kinds of niches in life. So I wanted to explain what it was that this had to say about what we can know as reality. After all, if the left hemisphere has a version of reality that it believes, and the right hemisphere has a version of reality that it believes, how can we work with this? And the answer isn't, as somebody rather jokingly said, we'd need a third hemisphere to adjudicate, but that's not really the case. We can look at the sort of things that the two hemispheres come up with about the world and about life, and look at which ones correspond to experience. And the test is one of pragmatism, that if you believe a lot of false things, you'll be caught out by experience rather often. But if you believe things that tend to be truer, you'll find that experience confirms that body of beliefs. And you'll find that the body of beliefs held by the right hemisphere are much, much better ones to work with than that of the left hemisphere. So that meant trying to go back to first principles and say, okay, let's describe the ways in which we get any handle on reality. And I take those to be what I call the portals, which are attention itself, perception, which is not the same as attention, judgment, which is the things we think on the basis of what we've attended to and perceived, emotional and social intelligence, cognitive intelligence, apprehension, which is the way of grasping and using what and testing it out in the world. And what I discovered was that of all these, and creativity as well is one of the ways in which we understand the world at the very start, because a percept comes to us not as a complete blank, but we already are working on it creatively to see where it fits in the world, if you know what I mean. I mean, all this happens in millions of seconds, but so that's part of it. And what I discovered effectively was that apart from what I call apprehension, which is grasping something to use it, the way in which we evaluate the world and come to know anything about it are all dependent on things that are better done by the right hemisphere than the left. And then I thought, well, after that, you need to go on and look at the pathways. When you've got these, if you like, data points or information or whatever you like to say in the modern jargon, but basically, when you've got this view of the world, how are you going to take it forward to know what is more true or less true? And I thought, well, there's effectively four things: science, reason, intuition, and imagination. And I think nobody would disagree with science and reason. Some people, but not the majority, would disagree about intuition and imagination, but they've been given a bad rap recently. And in the second part of The Matter with Things, I try to explain how each of these is needed. We cannot do with just one or two. And that each of them has limitations. Each of them can only answer certain kinds of questions and only be so reliable.
Don't forget to follow Theories of Everything with Curt Jaimungal on Spotify for exclusive content and in-depth discussions. Your support on Spotify helps us grow and to reach more curious minds like yours. Check out the link in the description and join the Core Toe community on Spotify today. See you there.